Hello everyone, this is a psychic prediction video for February of 2025. It is currently January 27th. So February could be a dramatic turn of events, especially including the economy. I do get the sense that there could be a black swan event on the horizon. If not February, then sometime soon following February. But first, I'll get into the cause a little bit later, but let's talk about the effect that I was seeing. And what I was getting was a lot of pain that starts to emerge just all around the world, just kind of all at once, economically speaking. And this affects the US economy, obviously. I was definitely getting oil prices coming to my mind. I don't know if this is going to mean that oil prices go up or down. It just seems to be somehow a factor within all of this. I was also getting that Trump's plans for the economy are not really working out, at least for February 2025, that is. And things may be going down. The second half of the year, though, I do want to say that I see things starting to get better in the second half of 2025. But just for February, it looks like there could be some struggle. And that, I'll get more into that later, but for now, that leads me to Bitcoin. And last month, I was seeing Bitcoin. I was saying that it was going to get somewhere around the 80K range. It didn't quite get there yet. It's still January 27th. We still have not a full week, but almost a week left of the month. So maybe it will get down there. But regardless, it got down to like 71, or I mean 91 or something like that, 91K. So, it got close to the 80K range, but I am expecting it to get down there for February. I'm seeing more volatility back and forth. It may throw people off. It may go up and down a lot, but I do expect it to get in the 80K range, and overall with the volatility, lower and lower prices. Even if it goes back up, comes back down, I'm seeing the lows getting lower. Unfortunately, it looks like March could be even worse than February, possibly going all the way down to 55K is what I was getting as a possibility. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to happen, but it seems as though there could be a lot of volatility where it just shoots down and comes right back up. And I know this seems kind of crazy, but I've been really seeing this for a long time now, that this is going to happen. I do want to say, though, that if it comes down really low, I don't see it staying there. For those of you who do not know, and sorry if I sound like a broken record at this point, but for those who do not know, back in November, way back, or before November of last year, 2024, 6 months before that, I was saying that November looks like an interesting month where the price could go way up or it could come way down. And then as it got closer, I was saying it was going to go way up and reach a new high, which it did. But I was also saying that it would come crashing back down even lower and it would be very devastating, which it did not do. Now, what's interesting about that is I had been saying this for months. Actually, I will say I was saying that leading up to November, but then when I actually did the November psychic prediction video, I actually said that it didn't seem like it was going to come down as harshly, but I still saw it coming down. It didn't really come down. It just kind of went sideways. But what's interesting is that other remote viewers from groups like Future Forecasting Group also were predicting. After I had made that prediction, they started coming out with their own information. All of the remote viewers from their team seeing some sort of economic crash in November. That didn't happen. What I was getting was that it's still going to happen. It just didn't happen at that time. Sometimes the future is not written in stone. Things do shift, timelines do change. What's interesting since then is that I've been saying that this is going to happen sometime around February or March, maybe a little bit later, but it seems like very likely could be February. And since I've been saying that, now this same group is coming out and saying the same thing again. So they're just kind of echoing the same exact situation where there could be some sort of serious economic crash coming very soon. Now, what I'm seeing is that it's going to be more of a slow thing, where before it was like a quick thing that comes down, it seems to be more drawn out now. Although we are both saying the same things now, or me and many people seem to be seeing this exact same pattern, that it's going to come down, but it's not going to stay there. So if you lose a bunch of money in one day, this is not investment advice, but I wouldn't sell it. I would hold it because I think it's going to come back up. So I hope that is helpful to hear for some of you. Give me just a second here. It looks like I lost my notes. That's important for this video here. All right, moving on. Donald Trump. So for February, I was seeing Donald Trump being kind of angry, actually, and off balance. Again, this could be related to the economic problems that are hitting him pretty hard. That was the sense I was getting. I predicted last year in 2024 that they would be leaving political traps for him in order to stall the process of him doing the changes that he wants. And this definitely seems to be happening. So this could actually be part of that playing out now. And it does seem that that has been in the news and confirmed as a thing going on lately. But I'm also getting the sense that there's all these issues just all around the world, all emerging at once. And this is kind of a setup, if you want to call it that. I was actually seeing Biden still pulling strings, even though he's out of office, but he's still kind of pulling the strings with other countries, and kind of just making it really tough on Trump to get the things done that he wants to do. Now, I do get the sense that Joe Biden, he, in the past, I've been accused of lying or being wrong about Joe Biden wanting the U.S. economy to do well, despite people behind him not really necessarily wanting that. But I do still believe that that was the case. I don't get the case that it's necessarily for America, but more so for his own presidency, to make him look good or whatever. But I do get the sense that now it's not so much exactly in that situation. So again, this is kind of like a global setup. I'm seeing a complex combination of many countries kind of working together, sort of like a like working behind the curtains, I would say, and certain people influencing things to just kind of make things not work out for him globally, not just within the US. I get the sense that things in this regard could get even worse in March. And I was seeing there being global conflicts even later on in the second half of the year. Even I was getting this vision of like fire kind of representing the chaos in the world and just spread throughout the whole world, and it just looked like a very challenging year in that regard. I was getting the term testing for humanity. And, I just realized there's kind of two ways of thinking about that. Like, it's a test for humanity to be tested on. And then it's like almost like testing for humanity, like we're testing to see if there's any humanity left. But regardless, that was the phrase testing for humanity that came to my mind. And it was as if we were being tested to see where we go from here and if we survive. So this seems like a very important time that we're living through right now. I did get the word evacuations as well, which is a little concerning, but I didn't get the sense that it was within the US. But it seems like in other places around the world there may be more evacuations than usual. I just get the sense that the world is moving into a chaotic period. But I do want to reassure at least people in the US that when I tuned into the US, it seemed like overall people were fine and the US wasn't in total chaos. So moving on to Putin, I was getting the sense that Putin is evading a peace treaty with Ukraine. I did get the sense that Ukraine was forced to agree to something that they didn't like, agreeing to terms that Trump puts down. And Zelensky becomes irrelevant over the coming months. And that's not so much a February prediction, but more like longer term. It seems that by the end of the year, he could lose his position. That's what I was getting. I was seeing another vision of Trump handing a key to Putin. And this key was a key to information. Of course, this is symbolic, but the key was giving him some access to something that he previously did not have access to. I wasn't sure if this was a database or what this could be, but I'll leave that open to your interpretation because I don't know. When I asked why would Trump be doing this and helping Putin in this way, what came back was very interesting. I heard they hurt my family. Now this is interesting because, well, there's a lot of information out there about his family being related to retrieving things from Nikola Tesla, and I don't know if that's very verified or what, but that's a rumor out there. I did a little more looking into this, and I found that his great-grandfather and I think his grandfather and great-grandfather were both from Bavaria. And I think it was his great-grandfather that was around in that area in 1776. And for those of you who don't know, in Bavaria in 1776, that's the location where, and you can look this up on Wikipedia, where the academic Illuminati came from. I say academic in the sense that this is public information. This is not a conspiracy theory. There's literally an organization that was called the Illuminati, officially documented. Look it up on Wikipedia if you don't believe me. Now, this is a complex situation because I believe there were some good qualities to them at first. They influenced the French Revolution, and they were against basically dictators and things of that nature at that time. The problem is that they kind of got possessed by spirits because of their obsessive ritual work. And this kind of led to more chaos. Although I still believe that they are kind of a disorganized organization, less organized than people believe. Of course, I talk about this more on my Patreon page. But what's interesting is that, his family comes from that area. There may have been a lot of exchanges of information. And there's just a lot going on there. I feel that Trump's family is kind of a mixed bag of, being on the inside, but not necessarily being fully driven by it. And ironically, this is very similar to Elon Musk. I actually did a reading on Elon Musk. It was a blind reading, meaning I didn't know who I was reading. It was basically remote viewing, where I got a 6-digit code and I just did a reading on that, not knowing who it was that I was reading. And what's funny is a lot of the feedback that I got on my Patreon page were people saying that this sounds like, this was a reading on Donald Trump, excuse me. It was a reading on Donald Trump, but the feedback was a lot of people saying that it sounded like Elon Musk. And at that time, Elon Musk and Donald Trump were like enemies, and it didn't make any sense. But now it's like they've come together, and it's kind of like, oh, it's starting to kind of paint a picture. But regardless, I've done readings on Elon Musk too, and I kind of get the same vibe from both of them. They kind of have their feet planted in some like deep state kind of stuff, but also their feet are also planted kind of in the opposing team at the very same time, but it's very confusing and mixed. But anyways, you can read more about that on my Patreon page. I want to get to the rest of this reading before I go on too long. I will mention really quick though that, sometimes you hear about YouTubers talking about how they have a whole bunch of people suddenly unsubscribed. I'd never had it happen. I just recently started talking a little bit more openly about controversial subjects. And I'm not sure if this is related or not. I know I'm a psychic and I'm supposed to know everything, but I don't really know this. But for whatever reason, I had 2,025 subscribers unsubscribed suddenly out of the blue. So if you were unsubscribed and you didn't unsubscribe yourself, let me know in the comments because I'm curious if that was the case. And if you would like to help me out, you can always give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Moving on here. So some of the things that came up last month, I just wanted to go over really quick. Last month, I predicted that there would be less drones in the sky, but more ET disclosure regardless. And we did kind of see that. Now, there were some remote viewers, different group of remote viewers from I mentioned earlier, that were saying that there was going to be bigger ships in the sky. I don't know if that really happened. Maybe that did, but I didn't really see many reports of that. But, and I was saying that that could be related to what I was seeing, or predicting, which was more ET disclosure, but less drones and things in the sky. What turned out to actually be the case was that there's basically the next David Grush that just came out. It seems to be a little bit suppressed due to everything else going on in the news. But if you have not seen it, I highly recommend that you check it out. It was on News Nation, which was the exact same news network that David Grush initially came to. I'll just read one of the quotes from this was the name of the video. Air Force veteran whistleblower claims to have worked on UFO retrieval program. And then there's video of the craft that he apparently lifted with a helicopter, as far as I understand, and apparently has video footage of that. So if you have not heard of that yet, I would highly recommend watching that video. There's a link to that below this video too, in the description, if you want to watch that. Now, I also said I saw ships, activity with Russian ships. Now, this also is related to what I said way back in December. In my December psychic prediction video, I said ships were going to be doing something in the ocean, and it was going to involve China. Or no, I said that it was going to be Russia, and it was going to involve other countries kind of ganging up. But regardless, what happened was there were internet cables, and there was a ship. It was a Chinese ship that came from Russia, and it was just dragging anchors, just breaking internet cables underneath the ocean, destroying the EU countries' access to the internet. And so I also predicted for January that there would be Russian ships spying on the US. Now, I haven't seen any reports of Russian ships spying on the US. Maybe there are, maybe it hasn't happened yet for the month of January, which it is still only January 27th. So we've got a little bit left in the month before it's over. So maybe that will happen. But regardless, what we have seen is Russian ships spying on the UK. There's a Guardian news link. I will link below if you want to check out the news article about it. But anyways, I'll read a little bit from it. It says, in early January, the UK announced Operation Nordic Warden, so it was earlier this month. In conjunction with the Nordic and Baltic states, it will monitor suspicious merchant ships in 22 parts of the channel. And recently, Russian ships have been crossing through those channels, which is creating a red flag for some people. They titled the article, Britain's response to Russian spy ship is game of political messaging for now, they say. They also say, by loitering in British waters as the Yantar, which I assume is the ship name, did in November, it demonstrates that Moscow is eager to amplify the threat. So as predicted, Russia, as I've predicted in the past, Russia is ganging up with other countries and threatening the EU countries economically. Although I feel that this will be less of a thing moving into February. Moving on to the Ukraine war. I do see it continuing as predicted. In the past, I was saying that despite attempts from Trump to stop it, I didn't see it happening in the first day, and I saw it continuing on. And even if there is some sort of peace deal, I'm still seeing battles go on. I'm still seeing, parts of the Ukrainian government that aren't really officially parts of the government, like paramilitary or whatever they may be, still continuing to fight, even if there's a peace treaty. So, I don't think that's going to completely end, even if there is a peace treaty. The Israel-Hamas situation, also, as I've predicted in the past, I don't see that lasting either. There may be some peace going on, but it seems as if there's going to be more conflict around that area regardless heading forward, unfortunately. And that's pretty much most for the world news, but let's go into some of the more individual energetic predictions. So February is good for, I like to ask just what's the month good for energetically. What came through is kind of interesting because it's basically the opposite of January. What I got was flexing your muscles. And I don't mean that literally. Maybe literally, but I mean revving your engine. That was another thing that I wrote down. Pushing for what you want. So this is the opposite type of energy as January, which was more about not pushing. But this month is about pushing, flexing your muscles, revving your engine. And I wrote down take one step at a time towards your goals. That's what came through as good for February. What's bad for the month is complaining. And when I asked for some general advice, what came through in meditation is it is time to burn away that which is old and no longer helpful. Be like iron, unwilling to bend. And I know I sound like a serious hard ass right now. Usually I'm saying complete opposite things like, be patient or things like that. But this month is very much so about being like iron and being inflexible, I guess. Don't bend. So that's a little different. Another thing that's been coming up recently for me, just kind of on a personal level, is I've been doing some readings on different individuals, and something that's been a theme lately is these negative ETs versus the positive ETs, and how all of that is influencing humanity. I've also been doing some readings and really finding out how there's a little bit of infiltration into the New Age movement, that is, and how that can be manipulated a little bit, but that it's not all black and white. And I did a reading on an abductee that has hybrid children, and basically came to the conclusion, after questioning myself and having other psychics read it as well, and doing more research, it validated what I was seeing, and basically it's not as black and white. And so even people who are working with some of the ETs that are not necessarily bad, there's such complex alliances, political alliances, just like the world, just like all the different countries in the world. Very complex political alliances. And so when you're working with one group who may be positive, there may be agendas going on, and they're working or cooperating or not stopping other more negative agendas. And so this just really woke me up to a bigger perspective of what's going on in the world. That blind reading has not been posted on Patreon as of now, January 27th, but it will be posted by the end of the month. And I've also been doing some blind readings as well, meaning I don't know who they are before I read them. This is an old one on Bashar as well, which also came to mind when I was doing this reading, and then I found other people saying similar, slightly different things. But it all kind of wound up with me realizing how complex this network is. And even if someone is channeling an ET that isn't necessarily working for the negative agenda, there is still potentially, in some situations, connection to ETs that are working for a more negative agenda, and it's very confusing and not so straightforward, not so black and white. So a lot of people, they'll just pick up on one of the positive aspects of it and be like, oh, they're the good guys. Or they'll pick up on a negative aspect of it and they'll be like, oh, they're the bad guys. But what I've found is that it's much more fluid and complex. Just like saying a certain country is bad or a certain country is good. Well, go back 20 years or 10 years, maybe just a couple years, and politically maybe we said this was a good country, and then a couple years later they're a bad country. And you know, it's fluid, complex, things are constantly changing. Countries may be allied to opposing countries. A country may have two allies, and those two allies are battling each other. It's confusing, it's complex. I get more into that on my Patreon page if you want to explore that deeper. Of course, it's free to join my Patreon page as a free member, and you'll have access to free posts, or public posts, I should say. I also have a 7-day free trial period if you would like to see the paid content for free. It's very easy to cancel. You just click memberships, select your membership that you have, and then click cancel. It's literally 3 clicks, and you can cancel it before you're charged. I would recommend waiting until the last day to do that. Put it in your phone. Put a reminder to remind you to do that. Some of the things that I've talked about there in the blind readings actually are Donald Trump and the deep state, and kind of what I was talking about, how he has feet in different areas. You know, it's again not as black and white. That's just really a theme that's been coming up for me lately. And I also did some interesting readings on the Ashtar command. Again, a blind reading, meaning I didn't know who I was reading. Of course, I also do world news. I've done readings on the California fire. Also, of course, I talk about Bitcoin. Of course, I have hundreds of altcoin predictions. And psychic readings on whatever you guys request. So check out my Patreon page. Also, I do psychic readings for clients as well. So if you would like a 1-hour psychic reading from me, I currently charge $160 for that, for a one-on-one hour session. Or if you want a written reading, then you can get that for much cheaper, just a simple question and response through email or text. The links to all of this will be below this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the Patreon for free, and consider that free 7-day trial to the paid content. Again, I always appreciate if you give this video a thumbs up if you have not yet, and don't forget to subscribe for psychic predictions every month before the month. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.